as we're going into summer, into the pitta season, how do we start to balance that so that, even though our agni is going down and our pitta is going up, how do we kind of regulate it with the diet? That would be the first question.
This is where it gets tricky, Avanti, isn't it? Because a lot of
Yes.
digestive herbs and spices and foods that increase
Right.
agni also increase pitta.
Exactly.
How do you increase agni and lower pitta at the same time?
Exactly.
This
A
is,
hard thing.
it's a hard thing, but gratefully, thankfully, we have knowledge of how to do that. And there are a few spices that are cooling, but they also increase agni. They support their agneya, or their pachana, so they help with digestion, or their deepana. They help increase digestive fire without increasing pitta. And two of these spices that I love so much are coriander and fennel. So in the summer, I use a lot more coriander and fennel because they are cooling, and they help regulate the digestive fire. So if it's too low, they will increase it. If it's too high, they will decrease it. And then also the leaves, so fresh coriander leaves or cilantro is also a great flavoring agent for food. That's also very cooling, and it has so many other benefits. See, in general, in the summer, our seasoning, the flavors of our food should be lighter. It should be milder. In the winter, we need like in more intense
Yes.
flavors, and they come from a lot of heating spices like chilies and mustard seeds,
Right.
ginger, a lot of ginger. But in the summer, uh, the balance is with mild flavors.
Right.
And these mild flavors, I like to use a lot of fresh herbs, like basil. Sweet basil is great because the younger basil is actually more cooling. And I love sweet Italian basil; is wonderful, and it's very tasty. It makes the food very tasty, but also basil is great for
Right.
digestion. Dill, a little bit of dill, like that. It's really a few like less spices, more fresh herbs, and that will really help to increase agni and lower pitta.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So, spices are medicine. We know that. Okay, so let me stop for 1 second. Let's go back to sort of, a lot of us, we're all trying to eat healthy. We're trying to be, conscious of what we're doing. But then, the way that we live in the Western world, it can be very at odds with Ayurvedic principles. And, as many of us are trying to learn. And so, first of all, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see that a lot of us are making with our food choices in the summer? Let's start there, sort of like, what are the don'ts and things that we're commonly doing that maybe we could just start to be aware of and maybe regulate, start to decrease those habits or those food choices?
Yeah, well, one kind of like I would call it intuitive mistake is to put ice in everything.
Yes.
So you may think, oh, I feel so hot. It's hot outside. So if I have an ice cold drink, I will feel cooler. But it actually has, like, thermogenically in the body, it has the opposite effect, because when ice cold food reaches the stomach is like, oh, let me put more fire and increase, just like turn up the furnace, so to say, to break down this cold ice.
Right.
Sometimes that happens, and sometimes the ice completely extinguishes the fire. So it's like, imagine pouring ice on fire.
Right.
It's
Right.
so ultimately ice weakens our agni even more, and it can increase pitta even more. So what I recommend is like have little ice packs. You can you
Or
can
do
put
it
it on your skin.
externally.
Yeah, put it in your
Right.
skin, because it will actually cool you faster that way through the skin.
Exactly.
The skin is also a hot organ, so the skin is one of the seats for pitta in the body. It tends
Right.
to heat, and it carries heat. So applying it topically will be much more balancing than taking ice
Right.
internally.
And that's why, in the summer or when there's a lot of heat sort of almost trying to escape the body, it comes through the skin and we have
Hmm.
rashes and inflammation and eczema and acne, all of these things, which is literally like heat is trying to escape the body
Yeah.
through the skin because the skin is this large organ that is a seat of pitta. So that it makes very intuitive sense
Yeah.
when you're saying that.
But see, so if you experience any kind of these skin problems that you just mentioned, also redness and all that,
Hmm.
it this is an indication your body is telling you you're overheated. You
Right.
need cooling foods. You need to cool down, because, as you said, it's just the heat is just trying to escape. Yeah, if you've reached that state, you're really overheated. So that, like, do
Exactly.
something right away.
Yes, exactly. That's a huge indication, right? And so that's one common mistake is that we're trying to use ice internally in drinks, in foods, and taking it internally, trying to cool ourselves off, but that's actually doing the opposite.
Yeah.
It's increasing our heat.
Mhm.
What's another mistake that people commonly make with food choices in the summer?
Eating deep fried foods and fried
Hmm.
foods in general, greasy foods, because in the summer we need less fat. And you
Hmm.
may notice also, I notice it every summer, my
I do.
skin gets a little oilier in the summer
Hmm.
and much
Yes.
drier in the fall. So
Hmm.
if you eat too many greasy foods, then this will definitely increase heat in your liver, in your skin, and you may start having these like pimples and acne kind of problems on the skin, because again the heat is trying to get out. I always advise people to quit eating deep fried foods altogether
Hmm.
because it's very taxing on the liver and the gallbladder and thickens the bile. And most deep fried foods are fried in very bad oils that have been reused several times, and that's really
Right.
bad fat for the body and cholesterol. But in general, especially in the summer, definitely. So donuts, I mean, donuts are deep fried, they're really enjoyable, but they're deep fried among many other problems, health problems with
Yes.
donuts. So, and all these barbecued foods, charred foods, like when you barbecue and the food, I don't eat meat, but people can grill vegetables also.
Yes.
And the charring is also very, very unhealthy. So,
Hmm.
lightly grilled vegetables, that's okay, but anything that's black, don't put it in your mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and so these are common things we're doing, when we're going to summer gatherings with families and friends and outdoors. And so, these are things that go on. And so it's just being really aware that these are things that are actually going to counteract our health, like not support our health really
Yeah.
in the summertime, especially. Okay. So fried foods, charred, grilled foods, the
Hmm.
ice. Any other common mistakes you see in the summer?
Let's see. Also eating very heavy foods, like heavy
Mhm.
carbs, and we need to eat lighter because digestion is slower.
Right.
So, like all these breads and baked goods, this is great food for the winter when it's cold
Right.
outside and digestive fire agni is much higher inside.
Mhm.
But yeah, avoid anything that's too heavy, anything that's
Yeah.
heavy cheeses. And we
Right.
need less dairy, we need less fat, we need less
Mhm.
protein also in the summer,
Mhm.
because usually protein rich foods are kind of heavy to digest. We
Yeah.
need a lot more fruits and vegetables and
Mhm.
juicy things like,
Right. Everything that Mother Nature gives us.
yes.
Yeah, and one thing that I often see in the summer is that because we want to eat all that fresh produce, some of us are eating raw too much. Like it's because, again, if your digestive fire is lower, it's going to have to work harder to break down the fibrous material and, all of the things that are in raw vegetables. And so, that can become a problem too if you're eating too much of that and if you're trying to eat them too early in the morning or too late in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to, I always suggest that people, if they're going to eat those kind of raw vegetables, a salad, to sort of concentrate it in the middle of the day when our digestive fire is a little bit higher
Yeah. Yeah, great
naturally.
idea. I mean, it's salad is really a raw salad, like leafy greens. It's the best. Summer is kind of a good time for it, but have a good
Yes.
dressing to ground the airy properties of it. And if you're eating it for lunch, it's always good to start with the salad, like finish the salad
Right.
and then eat the cooked foods. That will be
Yes.
better for digestion. And also, if you're traveling, because we travel on vacation and we travel longer distances, we tend to do that in the summer. So don't eat salad right before and during and right after you fly,
Right.
just to keep your vata or your airy energy more balanced. And in this way, you also be less constipated when you travel.
Right. Okay, so those are some common don'ts, I think, that, mistakes that we see. And a lot of them feel like, oh, it's okay to do these and we understand why, but hopefully everyone who's listening, you understand sort of the Ayurvedic perspective of why it's not supportive of your health because it's actually not good for your digestive fire, which is already low in the summer. So I think
Yeah,
that's
and
important.
Avanti, I mean, we're not the Ayurveda police,
Of
people
course not.
people have their choices, but what I would suggest to our listeners, if you choose to eat any of those foods that we don't recommend in the summer, just be aware, just notice how you feel afterwards. Be
Exactly.
aware, like notice how you feel an hour or 2 hours afterwards, the next day. Just notice how your body is responding to these foods that in general will make you feel more imbalanced in this season.
Right. And the awareness is always the key, right? Is
Yes.
being aware of why you're making the choices you're making.
Yes.